All right. Well, today is July 28th, 2025. My name is Sage, and I would like to welcome each and every one of y'all to the very first episode of The Three Count, where I hop online, choose three wrestling stories that I find interesting, and turn the camera on and talk about them. So, without any further ado, let's hop right into it. Okay, so for the first story that we're going to talk about today, it's coming from WrestleOps here. If you guys are on Twitter, you're looking for news scoops, you guys want to find out what's going on in the world of professional wrestling, definitely give them a follow. They're a good source. But this is basically talking about Nikki Bella. She questions that if a lot of WWE PLEs have themes, why not have one of the themes be all women when pushing for Evolution to be a yearly event? Now, for me personally, I am not the huge Nikki Bella fan, but I definitely feel like Evolution can for sure be a yearly event after Evolution 2, which was hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, the best WWE PLE this year so far. Okay. And if I'm being very honest, I might just say it might be the best PLE of the year. Period. End of story. WWE PLE of the year. Like full stop, end of story, right? And I know other shit hasn't even come out yet, but that show was so much fun. I enjoyed it top to bottom, man. It was just such a fucking good show. But yeah, I agree with her on this. I think that they have no excuse. I feel like the show, when something's good, you need to reward it, right? And I feel like the show itself was pretty it's self-explanatory, man. It kind of would be stupid not to have an Evolution 3 after what just happened this year. Um, I feel like if they can keep putting shows out like this and putting them together, and of course, it's half booking, and it's also the other half being the wrestlers, going out there and having the chemistry and putting on the matches. So I feel like if they're able to go ahead and do that and replicate that magic again, even if it's not as good as Evolution 2, man, it's still something that's worth trying. And I feel like there would be a market for it, and I feel like people would be interested in it. They would sell tickets if they gave it enough time and they booked it and they didn't just rush it with like three weeks worth of promotion, and push. And I think that it can easily fit into the WWE calendar as one of those themed pay-per-views. And yeah, even if you don't want to do a themed pay-per-view, right? If you don't, or PLA, excuse me. I'm from the old school, so I used to watch it as pay-per-view. So even if you don't want to do it as a PLE, it, if you can still do it as a show, you can get away with making a whole show about the women. I think they have a strong enough roster, a deep enough roster, and have enough marquee matches within the women's division alone to go ahead and warrant an Evolution 3 and continue going forward. So, yeah, I not much to say here, but I definitely agree with Nikki Bella on this. All right. So for the next story, we're going to be talking about Bryan Danielson, and he explains why main eventing WrestleMania 30 doesn't mean much to him. So, in his words, I main evented WrestleMania 30, and honestly, it didn't mean that much to me. My sister and my niece got to come in the ring. I was about to marry my wife the following Friday, and they wouldn't let her come to the ring. They didn't want her to be in the ring. And it wasn't just that. I was going through a ton of neck pain and all these other things. So these things that seem like cool moments to a viewer, there's all this other stuff going on in a performer's life that could make that moment not as valuable to them as it is to the people viewing. All right. So I'm not I chose this story because I just found it interesting because of the contrast of how this moment can mean certain things to some people while for the actual person going through it, it may mean a completely different thing. And I'm not here to tell you that he's wrong for feeling that way. I'm not here to go ahead and tell you that you feeling maybe not upset about it, but just a little bothered by a comment like that, is silly. I don't think either way is wrong, if I'm being honest with you. From his standpoint, he had other things going on in his life that really took away from the moment, and he didn't really go and value the moment. He didn't feel like it was as important as his AEW uh, matches, and moments that he's created there. Um, And that's him, like, there's nothing that we can go ahead and say to him to be like, well, yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you, right? And I feel like if you're that type of person, you're cooked. You need to fucking you need to get your shit together. All right. Like, you need to get it together. But I can also understand feeling a way about it, right? Just a little bit as like a fan, because as a fan, I was there, right? WrestleMania 30 was my first ever WrestleMania that I ever got to go to. And I had gone for a Bray Wyatt, and obviously Daniel Bryan was the talk. He was the talk of the night. He was the talk of the town. Going up and down on Bourbon Street with everybody chanting yes, and we're all having a great time. It was a special moment, and I feel like when a wrestler, not just Bryan Danielson, but any wrestler goes ahead and says things like this and tries and kind of like undermines those moments, some of these fans, yeah, it's warranted to go ahead and feel like that. Because I mean, Daniel Bryan represented a lot at that time. He was like the underdog. He was like, oh well, he works hard, he deserves this opportunity, and there's no reason why he shouldn't get it. And people really believed in him, and bought tickets to see him, to live in that moment. And it's a special moment. No matter what Bryan Danielson says, it's a special moment, and it will always be a special moment because a lot of wrestlers, every wrestler at this point, at some point in their lives, have aspired to be at WrestleMania. Whether that changed over the years, whether that became totally different, they all aspired to be a WWE wrestler and be in WrestleMania. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of silly to go ahead and just dismiss it. But I also understand where he's coming from, because there's other things that go into that we don't know about, that we don't need to know about. But either way, I just thought it was pretty interesting. And then the final story, the last story. It's the story. It's the story of the year. Hulk Hogan has passed away at the age of 71. And the reactions, man, the reactions. So I just want to say this, right? Anybody who's watching this video, anybody who is a wrestling fan, you are an idiot if you don't acknowledge the impact that this guy has had on wrestling. You, me, WWE, AEW, a lot of these places would not even exist or have the wrestlers that we fell in love with today if it wasn't for this guy. That's cool. That's fine. I am not here to go ahead and tell you that you need to go ahead and show respect to this guy. That's not my role, right? I'm just tired of people going ahead and calling him complicated. He was a complicated character, he was like, I mean, come on, like, there's so many guys out there, like Robert Downey Jr. was complicated, right? Charlie Sheen was complicated. Like, these are complicated characters, right? But this is not a complicated situation with this guy. This guy was a fucking racist. Okay? This guy was a racist, and he was just a shitty person, like, just straight up and down. And I feel like a lot of people just look at him and romanticize him as a part of their childhood. So they need to go ahead and revere and be respectful and things of that nature. But honestly, this guy was a piece of garbage, and that's his legacy. That's his legacy. That's the legacy that people are going to remember you for. If that's how you walk around in this earth, that you want to act, that's just what it's going to be, no matter what you do. And I wanted to make a video about this and do a longer content, but ultimately I don't want to give this idiot any shine anymore. He's passed away. Let him rest, right? Whatever. But the last thing I will say about this is, if we can go ahead and erase Chris Benoit for going ahead and murdering his family, we can go ahead and we could not acknowledge this guy, no matter how big of a fucking impact he's had. And I'm sorry that it has to be like that. And I might still make a video about this to explain my thoughts a little bit more, but I definitely feel like it's not cool, to disrespect the dead, but I'm not going to glorify this guy and say, oh my God, he's such a, whatever, because he was a piece of shit, man. And that's what I'm going to remember him for, unfortunately. But those are my 3 stories for today. Definitely go ahead and follow so you can stay tuned with what I have going on. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.